Your Creative Push, episode 206.
When you're thinking too much about the output, then it will destroy the creative flow. Just go with the flow and experiment, and don't stress too much about what it eventually will be, because it's all part of the creative process to make crazy stuff that's out of the box.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and you were just listening to Restore by my guest today, Julian Calor. Julian is a Dutch wonder kid with talent that exceeds beyond his years. At just 23 years old, Julian has already set the scene alight with his unique sense of melody and chord progressions that have continued to send his presence surging forward. Sending his early demos into revealed recordings, the sound of Julian has since shot through the stratosphere. His number 3 Beatport smash Typhoon garnered millions of stream plays online and captured the attention of those that matter, with revealed label boss Hardwell being a supporter of his from the start. It seemed only fitting that the world number 1 DJ offered him the chance to construct a spellbinding debut album titled Evolve that presents itself as a release of eclectic beauty. Julian, man, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Now, before we get into your new album, which is awesome, I love it. I have it on repeat. I was wondering if you could take us back and kind of tell us how you got into music.
So yeah, I started like 8 years ago. I was experimenting with different kinds of software on my laptop. I wasn't musically trained. I didn't play any instruments, but at one time, I think it was a friend of my brother. He installed a music program called FL Studio, Fruity Loops, and I was just experimenting with it, and I was really bad at it. But I found it really interesting to make sounds and to do something creative, because I think all my life I wanted to do something creative. I think like when I was 7, I wanted to make cartoons when I was when I became old, and so I was experimenting with Fruity Loops. I tried to search for tutorials and how to make drums and how to make my own sounds, and eventually it started to sound like music. Eventually, after I don't know, I think like 1-2 years or something. Experimenting, it started to sound like something, and I started making hip-hop beats, and after that I experimented with like a lot of different genres like dubstep, trance, eventually house, and that's what I sent my first demos. I've sent my first demos to Revealed and Spinnin and Armada, and Revealed was the first label, and Revealed is the label of Hardwell. That was the first label that really saw something in my music, and they wanted to sign an EP. And that's the Typhoon Storm EP, and that's where it actually all began. So yeah.
Yeah, man. So you talk about kind of like just starting and just seeing what happens, experimenting. So then when did you get to that point where you felt like, okay, I'm ready to send the first demos? Like, when was it just kind of a natural feeling that this is the moment, like I finally have something like kind of tangible that I'm willing to send out and have people see?
Well, it took a lot of time to actually show it to my friends. So
right.
It was kind of. I'm very. I don't show anyone my music if I think it's not ready or if it's not cool enough. except when I'm partying with friends in my studio and I'm like have a few beers and here it is, you know. But yeah, so it was like after maybe 2 years of making house music, I started to send my demos to the labels. And it was at a point that I felt like, okay, mixing and mastering wise, so the volume and the sounds are sounding equally as good as the artists that I look up to. So that was a point, and yeah, the rest is really gut feeling. Just try it out if it will work.
And does that same kind of feeling go to those sort of inflection points that you had where you switched from hip hop to house to what you're kind of doing now? Was that like just like I want to move on to something different and evolve, to use the actual name of your new album? Was it like a natural feeling in that respect, or like was it that you were sick of what you were doing, or that you just naturally wanted to go somewhere else?
I think it was quite naturally indeed. My interest. I have a lot of. I love a lot of different genres. Like I like almost every genre. I have some respect for, you know. So indeed, it's naturally that I started to experiment with different kinds of genres, just for fun, you know. So I was like 3 years in the progressive house scene and making progressive house, and then I was like hearing a lot of other cool experimental music, you know, by Flume and other hip hop artists, and then I went to experiment with those kind of sounds, and yeah, it kind of stick with me.
And do you think that you have found your thing yet, or do you think that in like another couple of years you'll evolve even further into like kind of a new style?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I think I'm never gonna find my thing. I think I'm until I stop making music, I always try to reach for the new. Yeah, maybe it's a blessing or a curse, I don't know. for some people it will work, and for some people they will want to stick to their own thing. I don't know.
Right. Well, I think it's a blessing, a blessing for you, because I think that it's really important for creative people to kind of push the envelope and continue to change. Because if you're making the same thing over and over again, it just becomes stale, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't have that same kind of energy, and it's not as fun. But it could be, I guess, a curse for your fans. However, have you ever like experienced that where people like love your hip hop music, or they love your house, and they just don't like to see? I know sometimes the musicians that I love, I don't like when they necessarily want to go off into a new kind of artistic realm, because I'm just so in love with their kind of style. Have you ever experienced any kind of backlash or anything from your fans?
But I also can really understand what you're saying about the artists that you think are cool, and then they're them changing their sound, and then you think, oh, now I don't really like this. I also have that kind of a feeling with the artists that I liked or looked up to years ago that now changed their sound. But now I'm making music myself. I'm looking at it at a whole different perspective, because you know, musicians, their style, their musical preference changes, and what they like, it changes as well. So I think it's very logical and naturally that sounds change. But you know, my fan base, they really got to know me when I released my album, Evolve, and that was the point that I showed all my different interests to my fan base that I built. And so the fans that are still sticking with me right now, they know that I like a lot of different styles. But still, maybe if I would describe my thing, it's not a style, it's not a rhythm or a tempo, it's more like a feeling. And I think I want to carry that feeling of my music, like the way the melodies and the chords are made. I want to carry that through my whole career. I think that's never gonna change. I hope that.
Good, man. And it's interesting because one of my favorite songs of yours, probably my favorite song of yours, which we're going to play at the end of this episode, is "You're Welcome." And I can't tell you how many times I've listened to that on YouTube. And one of the top comments, this guy said, "My favorite genre is Julian Calor," and I think that's like really really fitting because you kind of have, especially with Evolve, kind of developed a genre, kind of like it's a mishmash of a lot of things, and it's like a style that's very unique in your own. And I think that's like a really good mark for a really good thing for any kind of creative person to have this like very unique style that people can look to and point to and say, wow, this is like my favorite genre. So you can talk about that a little bit. Was there any hesitancies to kind of do your own thing?
Well, I think I don't really think about it that much when I make music. So and that helps me to make all the sounds that I want. If I go and make music with the intent to make a genre or to make a marketing plan or whatever, then it doesn't work. But if I make music with the intent of making the coolest sound that I can, then I'm creating something that is new. And just like the You're Welcome track, that's pure experimenting with cool synthesizers and me trying to make a sound that I never made before. And then when I eventually finish the sound, then work it into a track. And that's most of the time how I make my most creative work. So if I want to make tracks and with the intent of making it a kind of genre or make it fit in a box, it won't work. So that's a really good compliment. I think it's one of the coolest comments to get. If somebody says I have like my own genre, that's a really cool compliment.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that you kind of nailed it, where it's just like not having an expectation for something. It's kind of like play, like just messing around until you find something like really cool and then trying to fit it in. And I think that applies to any kind of, creative endeavor, like certainly with music, definitely with painting, drawing, and writing as well. It's just like finding a cool concept or idea and then finding a way to kind of build a piece around it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think it's the best way. But I also think for a lot of people it's really scary, because when you are an artist or musician or any creative job, you want to have certainty that you can live from it, I think. So if you're like making the craziest sound, you can't expect to make money of it. Not that that's the main goal, but yeah, I can imagine that's kind of scared for a lot of people. But for me, when I make music, I don't think at all about it.
So then, would you have any advice for people that might have that kind of fear, where they don't want to experiment too much or deviate too far from the thing that I guess works for them, or the thing that perhaps they make money from, to kind of push the envelope? Is it as easy as just not really thinking about it, not really thinking about that end result, or is there some other kind of trick that you use?
It depends on what kind of person you are, I think. It depends on what you want to do with your career. If you want to stick with a certain style, and if it is okay for you to have a living with that, and if it's totally fine with you, then okay, you can do that. But if you're the type of person that's bored quick, then I think it's more important to just go with the flow and experiment, and don't stress too much about what it eventually will be, because it's all part of the creative process to make crazy stuff that's out of the box. And I think for me it works to make a really, really crazy sound that I won't use anyway, but in the process of making that sound, in the process of finding that thing that I'd never used before, in that process that I learned how I can make it fit in my tracks. So I'm some days I'm experimenting and making the most crazy sounds, but some days I'm making my older style. But the most important thing for me is to try and combine it now.
It's like trying to fit it together like a puzzle almost.
Yeah.
Now, you did this thing where you asked your listeners to, you uploaded some demos, and then your listeners got to kind of choose what you wanted what they wanted you to actually finish. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
What was that like?
It was an idea my management and I had. I had a lot of drafts with new sounds and some experimental stuff, and I wanted to connect with my fans, and I wanted to see if my opinion about my music is the same as my fans, and I wanted to try and build a connection with the fans and see if they see how they would react to it. And so it was an experiment for a couple of months, and it was the beginning of my project called Involve, and now it's starting to become some kind of label, and I'm releasing music every month with it. But it was a really cool experience to have the fans say which draft I'm gonna finish, because a lot of times it wasn't the draft that I would choose, and that's a fun experience. But I wouldn't do it for the rest of my career. But it was like a learning experience, because every opinion is different, and you learn about it in that kind of ways.
Yeah, that's really cool, and probably something that I think a lot of people could experiment, regardless of their kind of craft, is to send out a bunch of different drafts, like unfinished things, and say, hey, like, which of these are your favorite, and then finish them.
Yeah, because everybody listens with different ears, you know. Some people focus on the mix down, some people focus on the melody, or, you know, the chords, or some people focus on originality, you know. So that's also a way for me to know who my fans are. It's not a way to please my fans as what they want to hear, because, you know, I'm fully behind all my drafts that I let them choose between. But yeah, it was a cool experiment.
Now, speaking of fans, and that's one really cool way to connect with fans. And I imagine it's one thing to see kind of numbers kind of growing on the on your followers, and to see on your actual tracks the number of people that are listening. But I'm sure it's a completely different experience to perform live, to see like them kind of dance and react to your music. So what is that experience like?
Yeah, that's a totally different experience than online, of course. When I have bookings, it's different each time. Sometimes I have bookings with revealed recordings, and those are the bookings that where the fans would come and they know my music. But there are also other kinds of bookings in clubs, and those are people that don't know my music that well, and the reception is really different per situation. So if I'm at a revealed party or festival, I play a lot of my own tracks, or a lot of tracks that I really like but are not that famous. And in clubs, I'm playing different, more danceable kind of music. But you know, it's different all the time, because it also differs from club to club. You know, some clubs really like experimental stuff. Some clubs want to hear the more noticeable tracks. So yeah, but the best experiences are when I'm in a festival and a lot of people know my music, and I see the front row just knowing which part of the song is coming up. That's the best feeling for me.
I bet there's no experience like that. I mean, that makes me want to just be a musician to experience that. As a writer, you don't get to see, people reading your books and, fist pumping. So it's gotta be awesome.
Would be really crazy then.
Yeah, that would be a good book. So, like, I know you have a lot of different projects going on, and as we were emailing back and forth, you're just, kind of deep in different music projects. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the projects you have coming up.
So I'm working on a lot of new tracks for my it's not a label yet, but I'm just calling it label Involve, and it's Involve is now my outlet for if I'm making really crazy stuff that's not yet suitable for all labels, because labels want a genre or a specific kind of sound, and when I make music just like the track You're Welcome or Restore, it fits. It only fits in my catalog, and that's what I'm working on. I want to build it up and make it a little bit bigger to go more in one direction with the sound. So Restore and You're Welcome, that kind of sound. I want to make more of that for the coming months or coming years. I don't know how long it will satisfy me production wise. So I have like 10 tracks almost finished. I think I'm in the future. I think not the near future. I want to do an album again, and it's gonna be different again. And I working on. I just this Friday I'm releasing a single on Revealed Recordings. It's a reboot of my track Cell. It's a 2-year-old track, and I made a little edit of it, a trap future bass kind of edit. And and I'm working on some collaborations. I want to find some vocalists, some indie vocalists and rappers to make music with. And I have a lot of different kind of projects.
That's really cool too. And that track that you're saying that's going to be released on Friday, for the listeners, that will already be out. So we'll have that linked at the show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/Julian Calor. So with all those projects going on, all these different things on your mind that you want to kind of push and create, how do you kind of balance your time then between all those different things?
I think every day I'm working on one project. So I have like when I wake up and I'm starting to make music, I focus only on one project. So I'm shutting internet off and everything and focus for a couple of hours. And I set a specific amount of hours, and after that I'm free to do whatever I want, but still within music. So then, or I make some new tracks, or I finish some older tracks. I do it in 2 parts in the day. So the first part of the day is like the priority, and that can be finishing a track or starting a track. That's different every time. And the second part of the day, I'm just freestyling, because I think freestyling is also really important if you're an artist.
So it's work and then play.
Yeah, work and play, but play is also work, and that's kind of
right.
the difficult thing. But I think that's the way I'm doing it.
That's very cool, and that's I think a good strategy. And sometimes the line between work and play becomes blurred, and I think that's a good thing when that happens, because it means you're still having fun while you're creating, and that's really the most important thing. Yeah,
it is. I think it should always be fun.
And you mentioned kind of creating a new label with Involve. I was wondering, does that kind of give yourself permission to be experimental? I'm kind of starting to think of an idea here, like for people that might have difficulty, like you were saying, experimenting, to kind of create a second entity almost, where like you have complete permission to do whatever the heck you want, Is that kind of how it works for you? Like, do you have that like kind of mental freedom to create since you've created that?
Yes, I have. I think Involve, it started off with the drafts and the people choosing between the 2 drafts every week. But now the main reason that I have it is because I can do whatever I want. So if you actually go to my Spotify and listen to all the tracks that I've released on the Involve, you can see it's a lot of different kind of styles and a lot of experimental kind of tracks. And that's exactly what I wanted to do with this project. And the music that I make for labels, that's the music that's more genre oriented. But it also depends on which label, because there are a lot of labels that are really freestyle right now and open-minded. So that's cool. But for me, it's sometimes difficult to release music under other labels, because it's too too crazy or too weird, or it's not in their genre.
Right. And well, speaking to that, with Hardwell and working with Revealed Recordings, are they like supportive of you kind of pushing the envelope, or how has that experience been?
Yeah, actually they are really supporting me in doing new things. And Hardwell also supports my new sound. They really liked Restore, I think. And so that's really cool. And I really like the way that they also change their sound now. I think since this year they're more multi-genre oriented, and I really like that. So yeah, they're fully supportive of my new sound.
Very cool, man. Before we let you go, I was wondering, this show is kind of all about resistances and things that hold creative people back. So I was wondering, aside from the things we've talked about today, are there any other kind of things that hold you back on a daily basis?
I think every day, because there's one thing I think every artist is struggling with. It's you are your own boss most of the time. And I think you need to motivate yourself like every second of the day to make the best out of it, to make the best out of your art, and to do your best work. And I think that's a good mentality. But at the same time, it's really dangerous to have like too much pressure on you, because I think pressure can destroy your creative flow. And I think for a lot of artists, that's for a lot of beginning or independent artists, that's one of the most stressful things. But I think what I said before, it's just good to switch your mind off for some hours in the day and do freestyle creative work, and then at other times think of the business end of it, because that's also really important. And that's also really what I noticed in these couple of years, is that at the beginning I really didn't give a shit, if I may say that.
Yes, of course.
About the business end, and I wasn't really thinking about that. But now I'm older, and there are more things to it. So yeah, that's one thing. And maybe other things are like don't let other people tell you what kind of style or what kind of thing you should make.
Yeah. So you mentioned the idea of having to motivate yourself. So how do you motivate yourself when you feel demotivated?
There are really, really different ways to motivate yourself. One of the ways is like listen to music. For me, then, is listen to music that's really next level. That really, really motivates me to push myself. Like when I hear something I don't really know how they made it, then I really want to try and do the same thing. That's like a motivator for your work. And another thing, it sounds really strange, but when I have gigs, I always when I have gigs in different countries, I really like to travel, and I really like to eat the food in the different countries and to have the cool experiences. And sometimes I use that as a motivator when I'm in the studio, when I make good music and I work really hard, maybe I can do it again, that kind of thoughts.
Right. Yeah. And it's super important to enjoy yourself too when you get that opportunity to travel, because not everybody does. And you've been to some pretty cool places as well. To kind of enjoy that and to kind of savor that moment and be like, this is what we're working for, Julian. This is what this is why we're doing it.
Just enjoying it and appreciate when you get to travel to those countries but when you're working, you don't really think about it that much, but sometimes it's cool to remember that's also a really cool aspect of this work. But there are different there are more motivators, and sometimes it's you're unmotivated, and that's also okay. You don't have to beat yourself up for it.
Right. Yeah. To not be too hard on yourself and to not take too much pressure on yourself as well.
No, it's okay to have a day when you're not motivated. Then I would say just watch a movie or do something else that's relaxing, but maybe in the back of your head it gives you inspiration
right.
for the next day.
Exactly. Yeah, like I find that walking in nature, just like taking a walk or even taking a shower.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, to get your head off of things and but not get too stuck in watching too many movies, and to not go down that rabbit hole, which I've been down before of pushing the problem that you're having with the work away.
It's all about balance. I think it's okay to have a cheat day, or to have like a day when you watch some movies or go for a walk, or go out. That's okay, but remember the next day, wake up early and do your thing, make music. Just keep it in balance, and then you will be okay, I think.
Absolutely. Julian, it's time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, and just give them your best final words of advice, and just push them to pursue their own creative passions.
Okay, cool. So I want you to just relax. Art is art, and art is, for a lot of people, a way to escape the real world. But as a maker of art, you must also relax and not think too much about what the output is going to be. When you're thinking too much about the output, then it will destroy the creative flow. And get inspired by different things, get inspired by other forms of art, or other things that you normally don't listen to. I think it's really cliche to say work hard and work every day and be persistent about what you're doing, and try not to worry too much. But all those things are really cliche, but I will always say they are cliche for a reason. And I think that's it.
Yeah, cliche because they're true.
Yeah, because they're true.
Absolutely, man. Julian, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate your time. And thanks for coming on and motivating us.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. And you can find Julian on his website, which is juliancalor.com. That's JulianCalor.com. On SoundCloud, he is Julian Calor. And on Instagram and Twitter, he is Julian Calor DJ. And we will have all of that linked up at today's show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Julian Calor. Julian, thanks again.
Thanks.
Oh, that was really nice to talk with Julian. I've been following his music for a while now, and it's really cool to, put a voice to the music. And I really liked what he had to say about making that weird or interesting or different sound that he had never heard before, and just really focusing on that and then incorporating that into a song later on, and not having that expectation of whether it would work or not, and almost even having the expectation of it not working, of creating something so different and so unique and so out there that you can't even fit it into a song. And that extreme kind of level of experimentation that's been coming up a lot recently, actually, on the podcast, to just try something, to really put yourself out there and to see if it works, and to not be too disappointed if it doesn't work. And if it does help you to create a new alias, a new label, like he did, a pseudonym, this idea of having kind of a secret identity where you just have that permission to create something new, something different, something that deviates from what you normally create, to give yourself that permission to do that. I think it's so valuable. My name is Mike Young, not Youngman Brown, yet this kind of pseudonym that I created for my writing about 10 years ago has kind of stuck, and it gives a feeling of kind of bravery, if that makes sense, to be able to put pieces of yourself out there that you wouldn't normally be able to. So if that's something that would help, hell yeah, create a new Instagram account, create a new blogger profile, create a new SoundCloud profile, whatever you have to do. It's really easy. Just, click new account and enter some information, and voila, you have a clean slate to really put yourself out there in a way that nobody has to even find out about. So my thanks again to Julian for coming on the show. Hey, let's go on the Facebook group and let's talk about music that inspires you. I will post a couple other tracks that I really like from Julian that I think will inspire you. What do you listen to while you're creating your work? I'm definitely really interested to see what your soundtrack is while you do create your work. Of course, you listen to Your Creative Push while you're working. I understand that. But whenever the episode's over and you still have some more work to do, what kind of music do you listen to? We'll have that pinned at the top of the Facebook group, yourcreativepush.com/group, if you want to join in on that conversation. On Thursday's show, we have Derek Rodenbeck. Derek has done a plethora of things creatively in his life, and he is doing some very interesting things right now. I do not want to spoil anything for you, but you can check out some of his art at derekrodenbeck.com to get kind of a preview of what he's all about if you are interested. But that is for you on Thursday. Hopefully today you are inspired to go and get some work done. So go and get it done. I love you all, and we are going to leave you with You're Welcome by Julian Calor. Again, this is like my favorite song by him. I hope that it pumps you up as much as it pumps me up to go and get some work done. So get some great work done. I love you all, and we will see you on Thursday if you need that push again. Bye, everybody.
Welcome.
Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.